Hello folks, this is Tennyson E Stead, the writer-director of Quantum Theory and one of the founding members of Eight-Sided Films. Today, here to talk to you about the sexualization of the actors in Quantum Theory. And what I mean by that is I have been, at this point, in enough interviews and enough media events where we've talked about the film and people have commented on the attractiveness of, in particular, my female actors, because it's always the females that get picked for this kind of thing, as a major point of interest of the film. And I want to be transparent up front that that's not going to be something that we take pains to display in the production of our movie. And the reason is because one of the things that people can't understand when we talk about equality in Hollywood, whether we're talking about gender equality or whether we're talking about racial equality, representation in general. One of the things that people have a hard time wrapping their head around when they are not a woman or when they are not black, when you are a white male, one of the things that you don't understand is that it is not normal to have a character who's not a white man in a movie until we stop making a spectacle of the fact that those characters are not white men. In other words, if there's a gay character in a movie and we make the movie about their gay issues, even though that's not the central drama of the film, if the purpose of their movie is to bring those, the purpose of their presence in the film is to bring those issues to light, then it's not normal to have them in the movie. When in fact it's very normal to have them in real life. So instead, the movie should be about the central action, the central drama of the film, and that character is there to do whatever they're there to do, and they happen to be gay, right? Or in the case of Quantum Theory, Chelsea and Roe are not women in the context of what the movie's about. They're inventors, really. And they have to invent this technology that lets them change reality by thinking about it, and then they have to find ways, invent ways, in fact, of retaining control of that technology. That's the central driving force of the movie. Every time we draw attention to the fact that they're women, we detract from the central point of the movie. The only way that it's acceptable to draw attention to the fact that they're women is when conflicts come up over the course of their pursuance of this action. So they're inventors. They're trying to find, the answers to their problems, and they're trying to, make this project work, and then they're trying to get it back into their own hands. There's a whole bunch of problems that are going to come up because they're women that wouldn't come up if they were men. And that's fair game material. At the end of the day, if one of their co-workers happens to be a sexist, and that sexism makes it harder for them to do their job, then that is dramatically valid. It's unreasonable to think that these women are going to dress in provocative manner in a laboratory where they might spill something on themselves, or where they're dealing with soldering irons all day and they have to protect their skin. That's not what the movie's about. You know what I'm saying? And if we go ahead and we make that choice, then really we're just fetishizing the characters. We're not making the characters about scientists. We're making the characters about a male fantasy of what a scientist is. And that's just not interesting, because we're not a porn company, to be frank with you. So I just wanted to take a quick moment and address that, because it's a thing that just keeps coming up again and again and again and again. To the audience members that demand that kind of fantasy from their entertainment, we're not going to be able to satisfy you on that level, but I do think if you just watch the movie, you're going to have a great time for entirely other reasons. I think that in the same way that you don't necessarily demand sex and fetishism from your male characters in a movie, I think you're going to find you are satisfied by the female characters in this movie. And making pains to deal with our female characters strictly in terms of what their action in the movie is, and strictly in terms of how they relate to the things that they're doing, instead of how they relate to the male members of our audience, is the thing that will normalize having women in films. And, treating our racially diverse characters, in the same way, is the thing that will normalize having black people and Hispanic people and Asian people in movies, and treating our aged characters as people who are aged and face the challenges that aged people face, but who aren't any different aside from those differences, that's what will normalize it, and so on and so forth. The same thing is true of our LGBTQ characters. And it's the objective that we face, whenever we go into production on a movie, and I think that it's important to stop and look at who these characters are and what these characters are doing as the source of how we see them in the film and how we relate to them in the movie, instead of trying to anticipate what sort of fantasy the audience will want fulfilled and what other audience members might be willing to let us get away with in the name of normalcy. Because, in fact, normal is letting a person do what they're doing. That's the normal, at the very least, that we strive to as a society, and so that's the normal we're going to reflect in our films. I hope that makes sense to everybody and it's helpful, and I'm going to be much more aggressive in future interviews when I see these issues come up. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the other blogs.